I'm going to tell this the way it actually felt, not the way it would look on a police report, because the official version turns terror into tidy sentences. Right now, I'm sitting in a windowless interview room that smells like bleach and burnt coffee, and I keep catching my own reflection in the dark glass of the observation window. I look like someone else. My jaw keeps clenching on its own. My hands keep opening and closing like they're trying to prove they still belong to me. An officer slid a paper cup of water across the table and said, gently, "Start wherever you can." And I realized I didn't want to start at the scary part. I wanted to start at the part where everything still made sense. But if you live anywhere near a quiet neighborhood with porches and streetlights, and that false sense of nothing ever happens here, then the beginning matters more than the ending, because the beginning is where you'll recognize your own life and do what I did. So I'm writing this as a warning. If someone knocks late and you weren't expecting them, don't open the door. Don't separate. Don't treat it like an interruption. Treat it like a test you didn't study for and act like the grade matters. I live in a calm suburb outside a bigger city, the kind of place people move to when they're trying to trade noise for routine. The sidewalks are clean, the lawns are overmanaged, and the neighbors wave like they're all extras in the same wholesome commercial. I moved in young, too young for most people's expectations, and I loved the little shock on their faces when they realized the house was mine. It made me feel like I'd gotten ahead of life, like I'd somehow jumped the line. My girlfriend, Maya, joked that my neighborhood felt like it had a curfew for fun, but she still liked coming over because my place felt safe. That word, safe, used to sit in my chest like a warm stone. It doesn't anymore. That evening started so normal, I almost want to laugh at it now, except laughing feels like it would break something in me. Maya and I got back from a grocery run just after sunset. There were kids in the street playing a game that involved chalk and scooters, their voices bouncing off the houses in that echoey way that only happens in wide, quiet streets. A woman 2 doors down was dragging a trash bin back up her driveway and waved at us, and Maya waved back with that effortless friendliness she has, like she's never met a stranger she couldn't soften. I remember thinking, as I carried bags inside, that this was the life I'd pictured when I was younger. A front door that clicked shut behind you, a kitchen that smelled like dinner, someone you love humming in the background while the day drains out of you. We cooked together, not like a chore, but like a ritual. Maya chopped vegetables while I stirred, and we talked about small things that felt important only because we were sharing them. She told me about a coworker who kept sending voice notes instead of texts, as if the rest of the world didn't have ears. I complained about a meeting that could have been an email. We argued playfully over whether we should try a new sauce or stick with what we knew. At some point, she smudged flour on my cheek with a grin, and I chased her down the hallway with a dish towel like we were kids pretending to be adults. If you're listening to this because you like scary stories, I get it, because I used to like them too, but I need you to understand something. The most terrifying nights don't begin with thunder. They begin with laughter you'll never be able to hear the same way again. After dinner, we curled up on the couch downstairs and put on something easy, one of those shows you half-watch while you scroll and talk and drift in and out of the plot. The house had that comfortable lived-in sound, the refrigerator humming, the faint tick of the thermostat, the occasional creak of wood as it cooled. Maya fell into that relaxed mode where she leans against me without thinking, her shoulder heavy and trusting. Around 10, she said she wanted to take a quick shower before bed, and I told her I'd head upstairs too, because I'd been rereading an old thriller novel that always made me feel weirdly nostalgic. She rolled her eyes at me in that affectionate way that says, "You and your creepy books," and went up first, already talking about how my upstairs bathroom mirror fogged faster than hers. Upstairs, she went into the bathroom and started her routine. I climbed into bed and turned on the fan, not because it was hot, but because I like the white noise. It makes the house feel less empty, even when you aren't alone. I lay there reading, the fan steady, the shower and sink running on and off, steam making the air in the bedroom slightly damp around the edges. It was so ordinary that my brain stopped scanning for threats. That's the trap of comfort. It teaches your instincts to take a night off. The knock was quiet at first, like someone tapping with their knuckles instead of their fist. It threaded through the fan noise and the water sound so delicately that for a second I wasn't sure I'd heard it at all. I lowered my book and held my breath, and then it came again, more certain, more deliberate, 3 knocks with a pause that felt like someone waiting for me to react. I turned the fan off and listened. The house seemed to lean into the silence with me, like everything paused to hear it. 3 more knocks, measured and patient. Maya called from the bathroom, her voice muffled. "Did someone?" "I'll check," I answered, already annoyed in that sleepy way you get when the night is supposed to be winding down, and instead it's asking you to stand up. I threw on a hoodie, not because I needed it, but because it made me feel like I was putting on armor. I went downstairs thinking it was a neighbor, or a delivery error, or some kid being stupid, the kind of explanation that keeps you from feeling ridiculous for being nervous. At the front door, I flicked on the entry light and leaned into the peephole. The view was black, not dark outside black, not someone wearing a hoodie black. It was like the peephole had been covered from the other side with a palm. I blinked and leaned again, shifting my angle, thinking maybe the little lens was smudged. Still nothing but black. I reached for the porch light switch and clicked it on, expecting the warm glow that always spills over the steps, and the peephole stayed black as if the light didn't exist. My stomach tightened in a way that didn't match my "it's just a neighbor" mindset. I should have stopped right there. I should have called Maya down and stood together, or at least grabbed my phone and called out through the door. Instead, I did what people do when they're trying to stay in denial. I told myself it was probably nothing and treated the feeling in my gut like an inconvenience. I unlocked the deadbolt. The click sounded too loud. I pulled the door open. There was no one on the porch. The porch steps were empty. The walkway was empty. The street beyond was quiet under the streetlights like a paused video. No retreating footsteps, no car door closing, no laughter, nothing to explain the knocks. I stepped out onto the mat, craned my neck left and right, and saw only my own driveway and the stillness of other people's houses. I remember thinking, with a little embarrassed exhale, that maybe the kids down the street had dared each other to knock and run. I remember thinking I'd go back upstairs and tell Maya, and we'd roll our eyes and forget about it by morning. I went back inside and locked the door again, double-checking it with that extra little push people do when they want to feel certain. And then I noticed something that turned my skin cold. The chain lock was fastened. I didn't use that chain, I almost never did. It annoyed me, snagged sleeves made the door feel awkward. I stared at it for a second trying to convince myself I'd latched it out of habit. But I could picture my hands unlocking the deadbolt, pulling the door open, stepping out. The chain would have stopped me. I would have felt it tug. I would have noticed. Which meant someone had latched it while I was upstairs. Or while I was outside. Or while my attention was somewhere else. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at a stupid metal chain like it was a sentence. Then my brain did what it always does when reality gets too sharp. It looked for something simple to do, something normal. I walked toward the kitchen like food could smooth out the edges of fear. I opened the fridge and stared at shelves without seeing them. I grabbed a bottle of water and took a sip that tasted like plastic in panic. As I closed the fridge, my eyes drifted to the window above the sink, the one that faces the side yard and the fence line. It was open just slightly, like someone had cracked it for air. That window is one of those details you never think about until you have to. I rarely touched it. It was sticky sometimes, and it didn't have a screen I trusted. I stared at the gap, watched the curtain shift like it was breathing, and tried to remember if Maya had mentioned being hot earlier. I tried to build a normal explanation with shaky hands. In my head, I told myself she probably opened it while we were cooking. She probably forgot. That's all. I walked over and shut it. The latch clicked. I held my hand on the frame for a moment as if I could feel whether it had been opened from the inside or outside, and then I realized how ridiculous that thought was. Windows don't leave fingerprints in your palm. Fear does. I went back upstairs, trying to act casual for Maya's sake, because I didn't want to scare her over something that might have been nothing. I stepped into the bedroom and saw the bathroom light still on, steam spilling out like a soft cloud, and I heard water running. I walked to the bathroom door and started to speak, already imagining her rolling her eyes at me for checking the door like some suburban hero. "Hey, did you?" The bathroom was empty. The faucet was running into the sink, and steam fogged the mirror so thick it looked like the room was trying to erase itself. No Maya, no towel on the hook, no movement behind the shower curtain. It was the kind of wrong that makes your brain skip like a scratched record. For a second, I genuinely thought I'd walked into the wrong house, like my mind was trying to escape by swapping realities. "Maya," I called, turning off the faucet. The silence that followed was too clean. I checked the closet, I checked the bedroom. I stepped into the hallway and called again, louder, nothing. I moved from room to room upstairs, opening doors the way people do when they're pretending they aren't scared, like the act of searching will keep you from imagining what you might find. Spare bedroom empty, office empty, guest bathroom empty. I ran downstairs and checked the living room, the kitchen, the laundry room. Everything looked normal, too normal, like the house had been staged. I was halfway through convincing myself she'd stepped outside for some reason, maybe to get something from her car, when I returned to the bedroom and saw a folded note on my nightstand, propped like a tiny tent on top of my book. I know how that sounds. I know. But it wasn't there before. I would have noticed it because I'm the kind of person who hates clutter near where I sleep. I unfolded it slowly. My hands were already sweaty. There was a dark smear in one corner, like someone had touched it after handling something dirty or rusty. The words were written in uneven block letters that looked like someone trying to hide their handwriting. "She's in the house, find her." I read it over and over, waiting for it to become a prank, waiting for Maya to jump out and laugh, waiting for the corner of the room to brighten with explanation. Nothing happened. The house stayed quiet, and the quiet started to feel like pressure. This is the part where I need to step out of the memory for a second and tell you what I understand now, because I didn't understand it then. A message like that isn't only meant to scare you, it's meant to direct you. It's meant to turn you into a person who moves where the writer wants you to move. When you panic, you become predictable. You become a flashlight beam in the dark, searching for something while someone else watches your pattern. I didn't think like that until I lived it. I called her name again, my voice cracking. I checked under the bed, behind curtains, inside the closet, every place that made sense and a few that didn't. I moved through the house like I was looking for lost keys, not a person, because if I let myself fully accept what the note implied, I thought I might fall apart. I reached for my phone on the dresser where I always left it. It wasn't there. My keys weren't there either. My wallet was gone. I checked my jeans pockets, my hoodie, the floor, the nightstand. Nothing. It was like someone had erased my ability to call for help with surgical precision. Then I heard a sound that made my stomach drop, because it was the kind of sound your brain wants to label as harmless until it can't. Drip, drip, drip. At first I thought it was the bathroom faucet. I rushed in and twisted the knob, but the sink was dry. The drip continued, steady, patient, but it sounded farther away now, like it was coming from a different room. I stepped back into the bedroom and held my breath. The drip seemed louder when I moved toward the bed. I knelt and lifted the bed skirt. Dust, shoes, nothing. The drip continued and my heart started beating so hard I felt it in my teeth. I pressed my palm to the mattress and felt a faint vibration. Not a drip from water, but a vibration like a phone buzzing against fabric. It buzzed again, muffled from inside the bed. My skin went cold in waves. I stared at the mattress seam and noticed a small slit near the edge, a neat cut just wide enough for fingers, like someone had opened the mattress and closed it again. I didn't reach in right away. A part of me screamed to rip the whole thing apart, to find whatever was buzzing, to regain a piece of control. Another part of me, the part that had finally started listening to my instincts, told me that reaching in was exactly what the note wanted. I stepped back, breathing hard, and looked around the room as if the walls might confess. My eyes landed on the bedroom door. It was closed. The lock was turned. I hadn't locked it when I came in. I walked to it and tested it gently. Locked. My mouth went dry. I didn't remember locking it. I didn't remember hearing it click. From downstairs, a soft sound came. Not a voice, not a footstep exactly, but a shift in the silence, like someone repositioning their weight on a floorboard. Then a calm voice floated up through the stairwell, not loud, not angry, almost conversational, like someone speaking through a baby monitor. "You're wasting time." I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. I tried to find the source of the sound like it mattered, but the voice didn't belong to a single place. It belonged to the house itself. I pressed my ear to the door, listening. The voice spoke again, closer now, still calm. "You already read it, so do it." My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. I forced myself to speak, even though my voice came out thin. "Who are you?" A pause, like they were smiling on the other side. "A neighbor." That answer was so wrong it made my stomach twist. It was wrong because it sounded like a joke. It was wrong because it implied they expected me to guess. It was wrong because it made my safe little suburb suddenly feel like a stage where anyone could be anyone. I backed away from the door and looked at the window in the bedroom. The curtains were drawn, but moonlight leaked around the edges. If I could open it, maybe I could climb down onto the porch roof and jump. Maybe I could run to a neighbor. Maybe I could get to a phone. I walked toward it, hands shaking, and then I heard 3 gentle knocks on the bedroom door from the other side. Not banging, not frantic. 3 polite knocks. The same rhythm as the front door. The voice came through, the wood like it belonged there. "Don't break anything, that would be rude." I backed away until I hit the dresser. My mind was sprinting. Every option felt like it led to another trap. I wanted to scream for Maya, but I didn't know if Maya could hear me, and I didn't know if screaming would help or simply entertain the person controlling this. The phone buzzed again inside the mattress, longer this time, like an incoming call. Then through the slit, a tinny recording played, muffled by fabric. A woman's voice, shaky, pleading. It sounded like Maya, close enough that my heart lunged toward it, but something was off. A subtle wrongness in the cadence, like a song sung by someone who learned it from memory and not from feeling. "Please," the recorded voice said, "please don't leave me." I tasted salt because I realized I was crying without noticing. My hands went to the mattress again and stopped inches from the slit. This was the hook. This was the part designed to make me act without thinking. I forced myself to step back and breathe. I forced myself to look for something else, something real. "Stop," I said to the door, and my voice came out stronger than I felt. "I'm calling the police." A soft laugh from the other side. "With what?" The casual cruelty of that answer made my knees feel weak. The voice continued, unhurried. "You're supposed to be looking. That's the point." I swallowed hard. "If you're in my house, I'm not playing games. Leave." Another pause, then almost kindly, "You can't leave yet. You haven't earned it." Those words did something to me. They snapped the remaining threads of denial. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was someone who had been planning, watching, rehearsing. Someone who knew exactly how my home was laid out, where I set my keys, how to make me move from room to room like a piece on a board. So I did the one thing I wish I'd done at the very beginning. I made noise. I started shouting, not just Maya's name, but anything loud, raw, filling the house, because silence was their advantage. I slammed my fist against the wall. I yelled toward the window and the street, hoping someone would hear. I didn't care if the neighbors thought I was having a meltdown. I wanted witnesses. I wanted attention. I wanted to turn my quiet suburb into a place where someone might look out and see something wrong. The knocking on the bedroom door stopped. For a moment there was no sound at all, and that silence felt like a held breath. Then I heard movement, quicker now, not as controlled. A footstep, another, a faint scrape like something brushed the wall. The calm voice didn't speak. The house felt like it was shifting, like the person inside it was adjusting their plan. I ran to the window and yanked the curtains aside. Across the street, one of my neighbor's porch lights snapped on. A man stepped outside in a robe, looking around, confused. I banged on the glass and shouted, "Call the police. Please, call right now." He stared for half a second, registering my panic, and then he rushed back inside. I saw the glow of a phone screen, the frantic movement. Relief hit me so hard I almost collapsed. I kept shouting anyway because I didn't want the person in my house to think I would quiet down. From behind me, the closet door creaked. My blood turned to ice. I spun, staring at the closet like it had become a living thing. The door opened a sliver and a whisper slipped out, soft and trembling. "Evan." That was my name, spoken in a voice that sounded like Maya on a bad day, tired and scared. Hope slammed into me like a wave. I took a step forward without thinking, and then I stopped, because I remembered the recording in the mattress, because I remembered the wrongness in the cadence, because I remembered that fear can make you accept almost anything that resembles relief. "Maya," I said, my voice breaking, "if that's you, say something only we would know." The whisper paused. The closet door didn't move. Then the whisper came again, softer, "Please." It was such a simple word, and it was delivered perfectly, and it almost worked. But it didn't answer my question. A hand slid out through the gap, pale fingers reaching, not frantic, not grabbing wildly, but reaching with confidence like it expected me to step close and offer my wrist. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and the closet door snapped shut. The calm voice came from somewhere I couldn't locate, somewhere too close. "Better," it said like I'd passed a lesson. "You're learning." I couldn't stay in that room. The walls felt like they were closing. I bolted into the bathroom and locked it, bracing my shoulder against the door. My chest burned. My whole body shook. I tried to breathe quietly, listening for movement, listening for another whisper, another knock. For a few seconds there was nothing, and the nothing was somehow worse, because my mind filled it with images. Then I heard a faint scratching above me. I looked up at the bathroom vent, the kind you never notice until it becomes important. The vent cover shifted slightly, and I realized with horror that the attic space connected to places in my house I'd never truly mapped. The house had arteries. The house had hidden roots. The vent cover loosened, not falling, not breaking, but being worked on. A screw turned. Then another. It wasn't fast. It was deliberate. My legs went weak. I backed into the corner by the sink, staring up, mouth dry, mind screaming. And then something dropped through the vent and landed in the sink with a soft clink. My keyring. My house key. My car fob. The cheap keychain Maya had given me as a joke because it was shaped like a tiny, smiling ghost. Seeing it there, clean and ordinary, broke something in me. It was proof that the person was close, that they could reach me from above like a nightmare with hands. A second object fell. My phone. The screen lit up as it hit the sink, and for a second my brain couldn't process how impossible that was, because I'd been searching for it like it was stolen, and now it was just delivered, like a gift. A message appeared on the screen. But where am I? The sender was a number I recognized. Maya's. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. My mind tried to grab onto it like it was a rope. She was alive. She was somewhere. She had a phone. Another message came immediately after. "Don't be alone." My throat tightened. I typed back with clumsy thumbs. "Where are you? Are you safe?" I hit send and waited, breathing through my mouth because my nose felt blocked by panic. No reply. Then a third message appeared. Not from Maya's number this time, but from an unknown number. "Look down." I stared at the screen, confused, and then my eyes lowered to the sink basin where the drain sat like a black dot. Something white was tucked under the rim of the sink, barely visible, like someone had placed it there with intention. I reached for it and pulled it out. Another note folded neatly. This one had no smear, no stain, just clean paper and tidy block letters. "Police will come. Stay visible, stay loud, do not search." For a second, I didn't understand it. Then my brain caught up with the idea that the person in my house wasn't just threatening me. They were anticipating the response. They were predicting my behavior like a chess player predicting a bad move. I heard sirens outside, distant at first and then closer, swelling like a wave. Relief crashed through me so hard it made me dizzy. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped into the hallway, staying near the center where I'd be visible if someone looked in. I kept shouting, not coherent sentences, just noise, because I wanted any officer arriving to know exactly where I was. I wanted them to hear that something was wrong before they even reached my porch. Then I heard something that made my skin crawl all over again. A soft tapping from inside the walls, like someone moving through the attic space above, shifting position, retreating. It wasn't frantic. It was controlled, like they were leaving through a route I couldn't follow. I ran down the stairs, nearly slipping, and went to the front door. Through the window panel, I saw flashing red and blue reflecting off the street. I saw silhouettes moving quickly. I shouted that I was inside, that someone else might be inside, that my girlfriend was missing. The front door handle rattled as someone tried it, and I realized the chain lock was still latched. My hands fumbled it open, and the door swung wide. Police flooded my entryway with bright lights and loud voices, the sound of boots and radios and commands. It should have made me feel safe immediately, but fear doesn't evaporate that fast. It clings like smoke. I kept repeating, she's here," even though I didn't know if she was. I kept pointing upstairs, saying there were notes, there was a voice, there was a vent, there was a phone in the mattress, and I could tell from their faces they were sorting my words into categories like credible, panic, delusion, threat. They moved through the house with a kind of practiced speed that made my earlier searching feel childish. 2 officers went upstairs. Another stayed with me, asking me to sit, asking me to breathe, asking me to describe Maya. I remember trying to explain her hair, her laugh, the shape of her necklace, as if those details could conjure her. The officer asked if Maya had left willingly, and I almost laughed in his face because the question felt absurd. And then I realized he had to ask, because this was their job and my story sounded like a nightmare. Minutes passed like hours. I heard drawers opening, closet doors sliding, footsteps above, voices calling out, radios crackling. At one point, an officer came down carrying the folded notes in a clear evidence bag. Another carried my mattress phone, the one they finally pulled out after slicing the seam with a small tool. They played the recording, and I watched their expressions tighten because the voice was close enough to be disturbing. Then someone upstairs shouted a name I didn't recognize, a code or a call, and suddenly the whole house felt like it snapped into another gear. More officers moved. Someone said something about the attic access. I heard a ladder being dragged. A flashlight beam cut across the ceiling. I stood up even though they told me to stay seated. I couldn't help it. My whole body was pulled toward the idea that they might find her. A few minutes later, 2 officers came down the stairs with Maya between them. She was alive. She was shaking. Her hair was messy, her cheeks wet with tears, and her eyes locked onto mine with an expression I'll never forget, a mixture of relief and disbelief, and the kind of fear that doesn't have words. She ran to me, and I grabbed her so hard I thought I might break her, and she clung to me like I was the only solid thing left in the world. She hadn't been hurt in any graphic way. There was no movie scene blood, no gore, no spectacle, just terror and the kind of shock that makes your voice come out tiny. She told me later in fragments that someone had forced her to be quiet, that she'd been moved through narrow spaces she didn't understand, that she'd been kept away from windows, away from sound, away from anything that could help. The person didn't want to injure her. The person wanted to control her, wanted to control me, wanted to control the house like it was a board game. The officers said they found her in a storage space near the attic access, tucked behind insulation and boxes, the kind of place no one ever thinks about when they imagine a safe home. She had her phone at one point and managed to send those messages when she got a brief chance, but then it was taken again. The person had used the house like a maze, moving where the walls were thin and the rooms were quiet, always staying one step ahead of where I looked. They didn't find the intruder in the house. That's the part that makes my skin feel too tight even now. They found evidence of someone being there. Signs of entry that looked simple and stupid in hindsight, like a window latch lifted, a vent cover loosened, an attic panel disturbed. They found a pair of gloves stuffed behind a box in the garage. They found a cheap little camera in a smoke detector casing upstairs, pointed at the hallway like someone had been watching our movement. They found that my porch light had been tampered with so it wouldn't illuminate properly from certain angles. They found that my Wi-Fi had been accessed by an unknown device, and one officer said something about smart home vulnerabilities, like my fear could be explained by technical vocabulary. They took us to the station anyway, because that's what happens after a night like this. You don't go back to bed. You don't shower it off. You sit under fluorescent lights while strangers ask you to repeat the worst hours of your life in the correct order. Maya is in another room right now, talking to a different officer. I can hear her muffled voice through the wall sometimes, and every time I do, my whole body relaxes a fraction because it means she's still here. But the calm doesn't last, because when her voice fades, the memory of that other voice slips back into my head. Calm, patient, certain, like it knew me, like it knew my house. Here's my analysis from the part of me that's trying to turn panic into something useful. Whoever did this didn't need strength the way you imagine strength. They needed timing. They needed your habits. They needed your assumptions. They needed you to treat a late-night knock as a minor inconvenience instead of an alarm. They needed you to separate from the person you love, even for 5 minutes. They needed you to move room to room searching, because searching makes you predictable. The scariest part isn't that they were in the house. The scariest part is that they understood how to steer me inside it. So if you take anything from this, take the practical things. The things that sound obvious until you're the one standing at a door with a quiet street outside and a brain trying to stay polite. If there's a knock late at night, don't open the door just to get it over with. Check your phone first. Call someone. Turn on every light you can. If you live with anyone, don't leave them alone to handle it quick. Stay together. If the peephole is blocked, that's not a coincidence. If an outside light doesn't change what you see, that's not just a bulb. If a window is open that you never open, don't close it and move on like it's nothing. Treat it like a sign that someone already tested your boundaries. And if anything feels wrong in a way you can't name, trust that feeling more than your desire to seem reasonable. Because last night, the most dangerous thing in my house wasn't the dark hallway or the attic or the notes. It was my confidence that my life was too normal for something like this. And if you're reading this thinking, that won't happen to me, I need you to hear me clearly from this chair, under these lights, with an officer waiting outside the door for me to finish my statement. That thought is exactly what makes it easier. That thought is the welcome mat.